Welcome to the Tone Lounge Podcast, the definitive music industry and gear podcast with Jonathan Guilloume and Frank Fleckenstein.
Welcome, everybody. Good morning to the Tone Lounge Podcast. My name is Frank. I'm your host. With me today, my good buddy Jonathan Guilloume, coming in live from Belgium. And also with us today, the man, the myth, the legend, Guillaume from Two Notes Engineering. Good morning.
Hey, Frank. Good morning. Hi, John.
Good morning.
Yeah, and if you're now out there listening to us and you think like Guillaume, that is French, right? Yeah, it's French and it stands for awesome dude. So there you go.
Is that what it stands for?
That's the French for William. Yeah.
William. Oh, now it makes sense. Yeah.
And
okay.
Just a side
Gotcha.
note, my family name is the feminine of Guillaume, Guillemette.
Correct.
Oh, okay. We're
French
learning
Canadian here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're learning something, everybody, this morning. Amazing. I like it. Perfect. So, how are you doing these days, Guillaume?
I'm pretty good, thank you. It's an interesting times.
It's an interesting time. Yeah, we just talked a little bit before we started the recording, and you said the market, the industry is still behaving not in strange ways, but we're still not fully out of certain issues, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, the most of the MI market had some time during COVID for obvious reason, people being stuck at home with money, and of course they bought guitars, amps, a lot of stuff. Yeah. And since 2021, we are going back to normal, which is the actual people playing music. And sadly, I believe a lot of the people on the market was hoping that we would have new players, like the people who would start playing music during COVID would keep doing it.
Yeah.
Instead, I think we had a lot of current players buy more stuff.
Yeah.
And they don't need that stuff. Let's be honest. I have a very nice keyboard, taking the dust at home, that I played a bit when I was stuck at home like everybody else. So the market is not going back to 2019, but it's definitely not as high as it was in 2020, which was abnormally high, let's be honest.
Yeah, it's true. We saw a massive spike during 2020, especially with people who, nobody was able to spend money on vacation or all the stuff that they usually do within the year. Everything that has to do with experiencing stuff, going out to concerts, the festivals. So people, spend a lot of money in stuff they could do at home, including making music. Yes, yeah. Definitely a thing. So you've been to NAMM as well, right? This year.
Yes, correct. Yes, in January.
How would you kind of describe your experience of it? Because we've talked with a few people about it, and it has changed a lot. That was like the general tenor.
Yeah, there are a few things I can say. NAMM is turned into a more of a B2C, business to customer type of trade show, where it used to be really B2B, or at least 2 days were pure B2B. Now they open it to the public for the whole 4 days, which is telling us something. I believe the NAMM organization is trying to get that place packed as much as possible.
Yeah.
2020 was a very impressive NAMM show, probably because, so I'm talking about before COVID, right? So that's January 2020. Probably because Musikmesse was dead or close to be, especially for the guitar industry.
Yeah.
And NAMM was concentrating the entire business, and that was the last significant international, really international trade show. Because of that, the NAMM organization asked the convention center to take more space because it was packed. 2020 was incredibly packed, and they built another big building next to the convention center, which is now the Pro Audio and PA side of the show. And we have the combination of two things. We have a lot more space, but a lot less exhibitors and a lot less visitors. So that thing seems empty. But it's just because it's a combination of those two things. Adding to that, I think some of the major players in the organization don't come anymore, like Fender, Music Group a few years ago. Mr. Boogie has not been coming for years now. So a lot of the actual American companies decided not to come anymore. And the trend did not start last year or 2 years ago. It started probably 5 or 6 years ago. So it's kind of a weird signal to send to the industry not to come to the NAMM show, especially from the people who created it.
It's true.
For the biggest contributor to the association, it's an association. So it's kind of weird. This being said, so sure, there is a lot more space and you can breathe a little bit more. It's probably less noisy than it was because it's less packed. But from my perspective, all our international partners were there. All the distributors, many retailers, probably not as many retailers that you'd have like 15 years ago. But again, it's not a new trend. And some of the press was there, but some of the international press especially wasn't. But again, there's an explanation. The paper doesn't sell. So they can't afford to come to that trade show. And it's a little bit the same for international YouTubers. Again, it's a lot of money to come here.
Yeah.
But doesn't seem like they have that much money anymore. So it's on that side, it was a little bit disappointing. But the American press was there. And some of the international press were there. But if I take the example of the French press that I know very well, nobody was there.
Oh, wow.
And
okay.
Yeah. But I didn't see a lot of the German press either. It's again, like I said, it's a combination of things. Is it worth going to NAMM? Absolutely, especially for us brands who are younger, I'd say, even if Two Notes is like 16 years old now.
Yeah.
But we still need to go there, and especially for like newcomers, it's still a very interesting trade show. But it changed, and even past the MI or pro audio side of this industry, if you look at some other shows like auto shows, or they are not as successful as they were maybe 10 years ago. So again, it's a more global trend that businesses think that they can do everything with video chat and email, rather than spending millions in trade shows, which is a little bit disappointing. That's not like I like to shake hands and meet with people face to face. I think we get a lot of work done by just seeing people, and because sometimes you can send 10 emails and get nothing achieved, while a 5-minute conversation could bring you there. So I do believe that there is still value in meeting people face to face, but maybe I'm getting older, and a younger generation doesn't believe in that, which is possible. But yeah, we would still. I mean, Two Notes will still go to NAMM if it keeps the trend as it is. I would love to see a few big guys come back, like Fender, or I think that would be cool, or Gibson. But even if they don't come back, that's fine by me. We will keep going there.
Yeah.
Question about that. I know that you also went to the Paris trade show not that long ago.
Yeah.
How does that compare? Like, it seems to me like the one in Paris is a bit overshadowed by all the other events. How would that compare to, let's say, a NAMM or a Guitar Summit?
Oh, wow. Okay. It's a very, very small show. It's a very small show. So the Paris show is 100% B2C, which is something you see more and more if you look at Mannheim Guitar Summit, or my team was in London for the pedal and synth show, and they had Birmingham right before. All those new shows are B2C, and people going there are not professionals, or there could be some professional guitar players, but not retailers, not distributors, not really international. And the Paris Guitar Show, it's I don't know, a room that is like 50 meters times 50 meters. It's very small, very small. But, yeah, no, it's minuscule. I mean, the Mannheim show is not huge, but it's way bigger than the one in Paris. We used to have a show in France called Salon de la Musique, Music Fair. And the same, I mean, you guys in Canada used to have MIAC, and I went to MIAC. It died many years ago. So those big professional trade shows, which I liked very much, they all died. Music Messe died, and are replaced by small B2C trade shows. But to be honest, the Paris one I'm going because we used to be partners at that event, which used to be 100% acoustic guitars. Then they transitioned to be more open to electric guitars. And Two Notes was actually providing the test pedal board and everything. So every guitar builder could come with a client and try the guitar on our system. Now we are just exhibitors. And it's very popular, but a lot of people go there to actually get a discount or something. They usually come with the idea to buy something and get them for a discount, which they usually do get. Like, we don't sell direct, but we have partners on the show, and it's the same in the UK. We have partners on the show selling our stuff. So I mean, whatever brings the people out of their home, I think is positive. Like, it's hard to get people out these days.
But does the Paris show still take place across the street from where Woodbrass is? Is it still the same place?
No. So actually, the one you're talking about was a proper professional event.
Oh, okay.
And it took place there, I believe, for 2 years. So it used to be at the other side of Paris in a massive hall. Like,
I remember that hall.
NAMM big. Yeah, not NAMM big or not Music Messe big, but it was big. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Then it had to scale down to go to the place you're talking about, which is La Villette, which is north west of Paris. And then this pro event died because some big players negotiated it to death. Like, they didn't want to pay to go there. Basically, I'm simplifying things a little bit, but that's how it worked. And then it died. So actually the current Paris Guitar Festival is not happening in Paris. It's a city close to Paris. It's touching Paris. And it's a fraction, like a tiny fraction of what it was. Tiny fraction.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Oh yeah. No, the big things, I think let's say for the majors in the industry, which Two Notes is not a major. For the major players, going to the trade show costs a lot of money, and they don't want to go small. Like, they have to go big. And so they're spending hundreds of thousands of euros or even millions of dollars for the bigger ones for NAMM. And I think it has to be worth it. And let's say 25 or 30 years ago, like, sales team would go there and just write orders all the day. So it would be easy to measure actually how much money you would be making and do say, okay, it cost $1 million, but we got 2.5 in sales. So yeah, we keep coming. Those trade shows don't exist anymore.
No.
You don't sell or barely anything at a trade show. You don't need to be at a trade show to sell. So for those companies, the ROI, it's really hard to measure. I think newer companies like us, since we've never seen those trade shows where you sell for a lot of stuff. I mean, we still do sell a little. Like, my most old school clients, like distributors, would always come to the trade show with an order ready to like as a tradition, but we don't need it.
Just to revive like old times.
Absolutely. Like, they would come and say, okay, I've had a shit year, but look, I'm giving you $50,000. I'm like, yeah, okay, you still had a shit years, but okay. but it's and I'm talking about really the oldest clients we have. The newer crowd, I'd say, is not. They don't even pretend they come with an order or anything, or maybe we had an order in the works and we just finalize it. But like all the new products, we can release the products anytime. The distributors would take it anytime in the year. It doesn't have to happen at NAMM show. Again, the exclusivity of those trade shows kind of vanished thanks to modern ways of communication. So yeah, it's a different thing. It's a marketing event. It's a marketing press, public relations. That's what we do more than actually selling stuff. It's just a different way, and it's impossible to measure the ROI. Nearly impossible.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. It's very difficult to, because you go into an event like, let's say, Guitar Summit, and you have a certain booth size, and you have lots of people coming in, but you have no perfect way of knowing if everybody who was there is going to make a purchase or consider making a purchase. You don't know what the effect is, the effective ROI, as you say, on those shows. You can only hope for the maximum exposure. I think that's what's happening most these days. You want people to spread the news through their various outlets, whether it's social media, it's YouTube or whatever. And that seems to be like the primary focus these days for all of these shows.
Absolutely. That's where it's a little bit disturbing or troubling that the press, or let's call it the YouTube press, is coming a bit less to those shows. But also, since we have so many national shows happening now, I mean, there are at least 2 in the UK. France would be like, Paris will be the biggest one, and it's small, but we have a few others. You have some in Switzerland, Germany. I mean, everywhere. Even in Berlin, I've heard about a new one in Berlin.
Yeah, I think there's. I think actually, I think in the UK there are now 4 different shows, if I'm not mistaken. So it's like there's one in the north, one in Brighton, one in the south, one in London. It's like they're all over the place because everybody wants to have their local show, and everybody wants to. It seems like everybody wants to create their own little concert.
Absolutely. But as a brand, we can't do 4 trade shows per country per year.
No,
it makes no sense. Especially since they all happen during the weekends, because it's a B2C show. You can't do it during the week. So it means you need to have teams working weekends, like 20 weekends a year.
No, impossible. Are you going to the Swedish one?
You mean the Fuzz guitar show?
Yes.
Or is there a new one?
No, it's just the Gothenburg one, the Fuzz guitar.
Yeah. So I used to go there, but it's similar to the Paris show. It's probably a little bit bigger, but it's small. It's very small. I like it because honestly, I love our team in Sweden. They are great guys, the Fitzpatrick team. But I usually go there to enjoy the hotel. The hotel is very nice. But I mean, is it a sufficient reason to go there? I don't know. But we have representation there, so the products are there and people can see them. And I've been there a few times. I love the city. I mean, it's usually a very cool experience. But again, I have so many to attend. I need to make choices, and unless there is something very special happening, like we will be back at the Mannheim show this year. Yeah. As far as I know, because it's getting bigger, and I think, and I hope we will see a little more of an international audience going to that show.
Yeah, well, that's kind of missing right now at this show. I feel that it's still too local or too domestic of a show, and it definitely could use some. I mean, I've talked to people that come from different parts, but they come from Belgium or they come from the Netherlands. It's like, but I'm not. Belgium? Yeah. You're Canadian. You have no say in Belgians. Okay.
I know.
But it's not like I've talked to a lot of people from Spain, for example, or people from, from like that come from like longer distances to that show. So, and a little bit of an international portion would do that show very well, especially
people drive to those shows. Yeah. They have to be at a driving distance. And unlike Canada, 1,000 kilometers is not a driving distance for a trade show. You need to be local. And you know what? That's one of the reasons why Music Messe died. Because Music Messe is providing statistics on the attendance, and everybody could read that most of the people, like by a large majority, were from Frankfurt and the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And for a brand like Fender or Marshall, they are not. I mean, they have stores. They don't need to have €1 million booth just to entertain locals.
No.
They can do that with stores, or they do roadshows, or they do other stuff, or clinics, or
Yeah.
But that much spending for fun, it's a bit too much. But I trust that's the main reason why the Music Messe died. Also, as a side reason, I would say Frankfurt. It's not the most exotic city for many people. Yeah, and
we've spent a couple of nights in Frankfurt. You know how it is, man. It's absolutely. It's not a very beautiful city, and the problem is, since there are only two things in that city that actually kind of provide employment, which is banks or Messe. There's these two things. There's not much to do, and the prices, like if there's no Messe taking place, and there are actually calendar days in a year where there's no Messe taking place, prices are normal. If you go to a restaurant, prices are normal. Hotels, prices are normal. If there is some kind of event at the trade show, up they go. Yeah.
No,
so,
but it's like a touristic area, except the season is when a trade show happens.
Yes.
And I mean, it does make sense. Like if you look at the prices at the Hilton or the Marriott next to the convention centers, like 3 days after or 3 days before, it's actually quite affordable.
Yeah, they hope that people are coming in.
Insane.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely it's absolutely terrible. Yeah, that was one of the other reasons why Frankfurt kind of died, because it was very expensive, not only to pay for a booth and for the logistics, but also have people stay and have accommodation and food. All of that was like, it just pumped the bill up, you know?
Yeah.
So,
but again, if it's worth it, like the fact that it's expensive is not necessarily a deal breaker as a company. Again, as a company, I'm not talking about visitors or amateurs going there. But as a professional visitor, if you write business, it's not a big deal to spend a lot of money. That's fine. And I'm okay with that. That's the logic of it. And it's, you know what, it's the same everywhere. But again, I think the Anaheim show being in Los Angeles, end of January, it's a nice time of the year to visit, especially for the Northern Hemisphere.
Yeah.
Where a lot of the business is happening, let's be honest. It's cool to be under the palm trees for a week. And that adds up to the success of an event. Frankfurt in April can be very nice and very sunny and everything, but it's Frankfurt.
Yeah.
It's not very exotic. And so you need to work. You need to have like stuff to do, money to be made.
Yes.
And I remember, look, when I started, I don't remember when was my first Music Messe as a visitor before I was an exhibitor, maybe 2006 or 7.
Okay.
And it was awesome. It was actually bigger than the NAMM show. You had more halls. The whole PA stuff was awesome. You had in the big place where you have those electro voice, like big tents, and you had the gala event. All of that, in my opinion, was superior to the NAMM show by a lot. It was so much better.
The concerts.
Also, the organization, everything was simpler.
Yeah.
And cleaner. And still, that wasn't sufficient. It died anyway. And a lot of brands were saying, oh, that's too expensive. But compared to the NAMM show, it wasn't that expensive. It was actually cheaper for us to go to Music Messe. So, I mean, it's a combination of things. There's not one reason. It's a lot of parameters that enter into this. And even if we still do want to do B2B trade shows, and NAMM is probably the last one, kinda B2B trade show. Every year with my team, we're like, okay, do we go? What do we do this year? It's more B2C, so should we have like people doing like tiny concert or on the booth or just to entertain people? Because it's not just having a table and chairs and writing stuff. It's about making something fun and fresh and it's there's always that conversation with other exhibitors. We talk a lot about it, asking, okay, should we go this year? What do we do? Like this year for Two Notes, we decided to have a smaller booth compared to the previous year. I mean, it's always complicated. The we can't measure easily that it's worth it. That's the main thing. And I don't have a solution.
Yeah. It's it's difficult. I'm really looking forward to what is going to happen to all of these shows and which of the shows is really going to stick out as like the kind of universal solution where B2C is obviously the main focus right now, and it's what it has come to. But I'm eager to see which of the other shows apart from Anaheim is going to be able to drag a little bit some of that B2B culture into it, where you have dealers attending and you can make some business and you can actually come home with, you've invested some money into the show, but you came home with a ship with a ton of orders,
I'm not sure that will come back. Again, many reasons to that, but the best reason for it to come back would be for the brands to get tired of do 25 shows instead of two a year. So that would be a very good reason. But since look, the way the market's structured is usually for most brands to have let's say a distributor or an importer in a specific territory, and then retailers.
Yeah.
But the thing is this, the marketing is more and more B2C. Like we need to talk to people, we need to advertise.
Yes.
Retailers expect us to advertise for them more and more. And look, if I need to do the whole marketing effort, like everything of it, I may want to have some bit of the money back.
Yes.
If you ask me to go to entertain the people at B2C trade shows, I'm getting the money. I'm doing the sell, which we don't do today, but we may, just because if I do all the work, probably it's worth it for me to get the money as well. Yes. And a lot of brands, like newer brands, don't even bother working with distributors and retailers. And those brands, they do those B2C trade shows because that's how they do make money. So again, it's about who's supporting the effort to talk to the end user, and how do we see a return on that? It's complicated. Honestly, I don't know. I know we have to make some choices on what trade shows we do, and I know very few brands don't have the resource to do 25 years or the will to do them. So we need to make choices, which is in favor of having big events, but they all died.
Yeah.
So what's the deal? Like again, it comes down to what Yamaha, Fender, those big groups, when they make a move, that's where the market is going. Us tiny guys, we don't get really a say in that. If Fender decides to come back to, and when I say Fender and Yamaha as in a big capacity, or like those big guys, if they say, okay, we put the money on NAMM will become huge again.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's a negotiation, and I don't have first-hand information on what's gonna happen. But it's we try to follow. We can't set the trend. We just follow the trend.
I got a question because you guys are talking business, and I'm trying to think about the people listening who don't understand this part of the business. And I mean, I love this conversation, but I'm trying to think of the mindset of like a simple guitar player who just wants to know, like, how does this work? So my question has to have like a setting for it to make sense. So let's say me as a guitar player, I'm hearing you guys talk about selling from business to business or business to customer. For us who don't have businesses, we're trying to think like, where's the value for the company selling directly to a company if they can sell directly to me? I know we're talking about two very different markets here, and financially the incentive is substantially different too.
Oh, yes.
So let's say, for example, the both of you have your own companies and you decide you want to cater to me who's just watching your YouTube channels, and you're trying to do your own publications, you're trying to do your own marketing, you're entertaining people, and you're trying to sell to me and the other guitar players that are watching your content. What would be the struggle if that was your marketing plan? You start, okay, I'm in my basement, I want to reach out to all the different guitar players. What are we talking financially, the difference between trying to cater to the people directly versus, let's say, having a distributor who has the whole European territory or the whole North American territory?
Well, it's a vast question. Well, first of all, I can explain why we would want to work with distributors and retailers. We trust that a local retailer, has a special relationship with his clients. So you, the guitarist, and that you may want to go to that place to receive a better service than me as a brand selling direct online and having just a very generic message that is not that can't be tailored to your needs. So when you go to a retailer, you would say, all right, this is the kind of music I'm playing. I'm trying to I'm trying to fix a problem I have, and the retailer can work with you, which us as a brand, we try to do through social network or forums or whatever. But when we push a message, it has to be a little bit generic because we can't have one just for you. So the retailer can do that. And the retailer needs support as well. They need to understand the product. So the distributor on a specific territory is supposed to teach you how to sell the stuff, teach you how they work, and again, to provide better service. Okay, so that's part of the value that a distributor and retailers offer. Also, if your product is broken, the retailer can contact the distributor and say, okay, I need a new one, my unit is broken, or I need to find a way to service that product. And that's their job, to make that fast as possible, as simple as possible for the end users. They are not all great at doing that, but that's what they're supposed to do. That's what we as a brand, that's why we work with them. There is also another thing that people don't see because they are not professionals. But when I sell a product in Japan, so I'm based in France, most of the products are made in China. Yeah. So I'm selling the products to Japan, and the Japanese market is asking a foreign brand to actually obey to some rules in terms of security, lots of rules, lot of rules, and each country have their own set of rules. Canada, for example, changed them a few years ago relating to how we ground a product internally. So we had to make changes to all the products to follow that rule. Yeah. A distributor is responsible for putting the product on the market, meaning in the case of the worst case scenario with an electronic product, which is not a broken product, that's fine. I could deal with that from here and ship something to Japan or Canada. But you may have to pay duty and some other stuff. So again, as an end user, you may not understand why you would have to pay something because it's shipping from abroad, or VAT where it applies, or state tax. But the worst case scenario would be if your kid gets electrocuted with a product and sadly dies, you will want to find the responsible for that. And if we have a distributor, that's a distributor, and he's local to your country. So you have a legal recourse, and you can actually hire a lawyer and engage the responsibility of that local company. If you buy from a foreign company, good luck suing them, because the first thing you will see in every user manual is the governing law, which is usually the country of provenance. So let's say you're buying something from a Chinese company, they ship the product to you directly, your kid dies, and again, I'm sorry, but that could happen. Well, you have no recourse, because good luck suing a Chinese company from Canada. Uh-huh. And again, that's one of the reasons I want to work with distributors, especially since I'm selling hardware, because I want the end user to be protected in case anything happens. And of course, nothing bad will happen in 99.999% of the cases, but it just takes a couple or one to make it huge. And so the distributor is the company that put the product on the market, and they are responsible for the product. Yes. And of course, the distributor can sue me or sue my company after, but it's a company suing another company. That's fine. That's part of the job. It happens. Not often, but it can happen. So that's, again, nobody knows that. Again, when you buy from AliExpress or Temu to a Chinese company, you have no recourse. It's gone. Like you can try suing them, they won't care. And it doesn't happen often. The risk is very, very low, but you should know there is one. And so for that reason, we give them a lot of money. We pay the distributor, and the distributor pays the retailer to sell the stuff for service before the sale, after the sale, and in case there is a legal issue arising that the end user will not be able to deal with if they don't have a company in front of them. So those are the reasons, the main reasons. In terms of marketing, again, as a company, I can't translate all my stuff in 150 languages. Yeah. The distributor is responsible for pushing the message into the market in the local language, which they do or not, but they're supposed to do it. So for Two Notes, for example, we're a French brand, so we have everything in French. And since the marketing team is mainly English and American, we also have the English and American version of stuff. But we don't have a Chinese in 20 Chinese dialects. We don't have Japanese. We don't have even Spanish, which is a bit of a shame. I'm trying to fix that. But and Spain is like next door, this direction. Italy, just this direction. But the distributor is also supposed to do some marketing effort. That's why they get the margin as well. So there are, so when, of course, the end users often they say, "Oh, wait a minute, I can build that shit for $100, and why do they sell me at $400?" Well, that's the reason. Service, local marketing. That's the reason. I don't take that money. That money is given to our partners that are, I mean, all of them are doing a great job. If we work with them, it's because they do that. And that, as an end user, you can reserve some service, and that's what you pay for. That's all. That's not the electronics in the product. That's not what you pay for.
Has somebody ever come around to you and told you that in regards to one of your products, actually, that they said, "Well, I can build that for $100"?
Yeah, every day.
What?
Sure.
I'd love to see that.
I mean, if somebody talks about a pedal, I was like, yeah, maybe. You know, you can get the parts. You can get one of these like DIY PCBs, and if your soldering skills are not too shitty, yeah, you might be able to pull it off. But it's not going to sound the same. But with your products like so in such a like different category. There's so much more happening inside of it. Whereas like, do you think I could build a Captor X for $100? I don't think so.
No, not a Captor X. But look. You could build your own load box. Of course, you won't have the security features we have. You won't have a lot of stuff that people don't see. But you can build a load box. Then you can use a free software online or an IR loader into your DAW. I mean, there are ways to achieve something that looks a little bit like what I'm selling, and do it in your DAW. Some of it.
Yeah, some of it.
For some people, the software we give with it, the effort we put into the firmware, none of that is worth anything. And again, that's an opinion. I'm fine with it. But yeah, we get that every day. And pedal builders get that all the time as well.
Oh yeah. I mean, you just have to look into some of the conversations that are taking place in like Facebook groups and forums, and somebody's selling a handmade pedal for like $200 or something, and then the first response is always, you know, they look at the parts because sadly this person made a shot from the inside, you know, and the person's like, so I've just added the parts together, and this is like $40 in parts. Why do I have to pay $200 for it? And you're like, dude, there's something called lifetime, you know, when building this, and has to be paid as well. I know it's a hassle, you know, you don't want to pay people for their time, but it is part of it. And then also, maybe this guy came up with the schematics for this, and he like put in time and effort to kind of fine tune it so it sounds like a really great fuzz or whatever it is, you know. And that's also time. You have to pay for this as well, but people don't see that.
No, but look, it's the same for every job.
Yes.
Like, okay, I have a PhD in electronics. I can change a light bulb Okay, I know people who would hire an electrician to do that, and it's not. I mean, it's fine. Like I'm terrible at plumbing, but if I hire someone to change whatever in my plumbing, I will pay €100 just for have him come to my place, and probably another 100 for parts and time. And those 200, I could have fixed it myself, most probably. But when I'm away, my wife has a broken something at home, I will pay the price. That's all. And I'm not asking her to change anything. Yeah. But if I'm home, I will probably do it myself. Again, it's fair, right? Yeah. It's the same for every job. If you talk to, let's say, look, there is a revolution happening with AI, especially in graphic arts, okay? Yeah. So every day you have guys posting awesome picture they generated with Midjourney or something else. And the graphic guy like, oh, I used to get paid $500 to do that work. Now I get nothing. Like as a company, like you have your own brand, Frank, okay? So you're searching for a logo for the brand. 20 years ago, you would have to pay for one guy, two guys, three guys, maybe to get to something you like. Today, you go to Midjourney, I'm like, oh, I'm designing pedals, I like metal, and I want a skull. And boom, you have 25, 50, 250 example, and you can refine it and take within 2 hours of your time, you get to something that's probably a little bit better than what you would have with your little cousin who just started art studies at the university. And because that's what I did when I started. Went to my cousin, said, draw me your logo. And that's actually, I'm still using the same logo. But but today you just go to an AI machine and nobody wants to pay for that job anymore. And it's not because it became bad or artists became terrible. It's just because you have new tools that allow you to actually get to a very good result very fast for very little money. That's just how it is. For the pedal industry, let's be honest, most of it is about the drawing on the pedal itself. What's inside is sometimes barely relevant. And yes, it's just a handful of parts, but putting them together and making them sound like something interesting, that's where the money is. But if you just copy it, you don't have to do the work. You just copy the pedal and it's done. That's why you have like $10 overdrives online, because it costs $5 in parts.
Yeah, it's true. And if you then do it in bulk, I mean, Jonathan, please go ahead. Sorry.
You guys are saying something that I think we need to rise to the top, because I find it really fascinating. So the both of you are underlying this one thing that I don't think we're addressing, and that is ignorance on the part of people who don't understand what it's like to run a business. So if I can circle back, I'll come back to this very topic here. But earlier, Guillaume, you were talking about how you need the distributors. How many small companies start with a distributor and then they're like, fuck this shit, this is too expensive, I'll sell direct, right? There's a mistake there because they ignore the value that the distributor is going to have for them. All the things you underline, that's stuff I had never heard of before. But if you're unaware of this, right, you're losing the value of this position, of this particular industry. So you're going to omit it because you're looking at the smallest amount of money in profit that you can make. Now, if you look at a graphic designer, right, this person has been drawing since the age of 6. They went to college, went to university. They've done hundreds of logos which flopped, and then they've made hundreds which are excellent and are used by companies. And then you have a schmuck like me sitting at his computer going, why the fuck would I pay this guy $1,000 for something he took 20 minutes to make? 20 minutes. It's like, are you paying for his time? Or are you paying for the experience? For the knowledge, right? So when it comes to, let's say, Two Notes, some schmuck out there is going to say that he can build something that's the same for $100. But the truth is, no, because he doesn't have the expertise. He doesn't have all the experience that you went through, all the philosophies you've integrated into your product. So it's really easy to build a pedal and put everything together and just copy something else. But if you're trying to be innovative, you're trying to have a new approach on it, that requires the technical experience, and that also needs to have a person that worked on it for a long time and developed their skills.
Yeah.
So anyone can just go on AI and get some stupid graphic done by AI, but they don't have the understanding of AI. They don't know how to actually ask better questions so that AI will work better for them. So now that I've kind of set the stage, if you're looking at Two Notes and the technology you have, when you guys came in, you were like the only ones really doing this. And we're looking at this now in 2024, and you're still leading the pack. So anyone that says they can do the same shit you guys are doing for $100 is really stupid. I'm just going to put that out there.
Again, it's a subjective topic. I think some technician, and they did study, and they do understand how we do things, and it's not like, I mean, the once you have the finished product, it's not that hard to figure it out. Getting to the finished product took time.
Yeah.
But then when you have it, yeah, sure, okay, makes sense, obvious, and let's just do a copy of it. It's and it's not just for our industry. It's all the industries, all of them. Like refining a process. When you get the finalized product, a lot of things are obvious. It's the journey to get there that is not. Mm-hmm. And again, most people don't see that unless their job is threatened for the same reason. But yeah, I guess that's just how it is. I mean, I'm not complaining about it. I think it's a general state of nature. It's just how it is, and we have to deal with it. Also, it keeps us, let's say, trying to evolve or innovate all the time. Because if you don't do that, yeah, sure, a guy would just make a copy of it and sell it, then we have to keep innovating and bringing new stuff to the market. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. It's sometimes it's a little bit, it's tiring to have to answer to those people, and I don't do answer myself. I have a team helping me with that, but sometimes you're like, okay, dude, just do it. Oh, and try to start a business and making a living out of it. Let's see how it goes, or let's see how it goes when you sell your copy, and for some reason you did not understand a part, and someone fries their amp thanks to your stuff. Let's see how you deal with it. That again, that's all of that is factored into the price. But again, it's as a customer, you don't see necessarily that value, and it's not specific to our industry. Like if you build a guitar, getting to a very good finish is hard. Like putting together some wood and put some strings on it, pretty much anybody can do it. Make it sound good and work and be reliable and be a professional tool that you can bring on tour with you. All of that is actually what makes the price, not just the color or the finish no, all of that makes the price. And again, some people just don't see it because some cheaper versions do exist and they look the same when you look at them from a distance. When you look closely or when you understand how those products are made, you can see a difference. Like I have a good example. I use a lot of automotive examples because they speak to like everybody has a car pretty much. But you have Chinese knockoffs of tires. Okay, if you have a sports car, will you put a Chinese knockoff tire before you go on the track? Because I wouldn't.
No.
But if I drive a car just to go to school and back and do some grocery shopping and back, would the Chinese knockoff work most of the time? Yeah, probably. Will they tear off faster? Maybe. Actually, usually they tear off slower because they put very hard rubber that doesn't work into the rain or when you actually need it in an emergency situation. But emergencies, they don't happen often. Actually, all the money you put into those tires may just serve a purpose once in your lifetime. But that day, at that hour, you will feel the difference. It may save your life. But until you're into that situation, everything's fine. That's just, and it's the same for us. Not a lot of life-threatening situation in our industry, hopefully, but you understand the comparison.
Yeah, 100%. I just realized something. We are very fortunate that within just 1 week, we have two people on the podcast that essentially created a complete new product category in this industry. Last week we had Thomas Blug, who when he created the AMP1 essentially established at least to my understanding of the market and to what I've seen up to that point, who created this like pedalboard amp that was actually usable instead of like bringing your 100 watt head or whatever you played before. And now 1 week passes and we talk to a person who pretty much revolutionized and invented a load box that's more than a load box. Because I mean, we had load boxes before, but they weren't working very well, and they kind of sucked regarding tone. And we also had speaker simulations before, sometimes even in combination, but they didn't sound very well, and they also looked shitty. So, and then you come around, and it must have been like 2008-ish. Something like that, 2008, 2009, something like that. And then you come around and you come up with something that combines these two things in general, but you make them usable for people in a way that wasn't there before. When did you first realize that you just created something that might be, a game changer, essentially?
That's a tough question. I don't consider changing the game. That was never the goal.
You're not getting enough credit for it. But if we just look at the facts, and this does not come out of my love for you and for the company and the stuff that you've done, that I'm using on a daily basis, has nothing to do with it. I'm trying to look at it from like an overview of the market, and I look what was there before, and I look what is there now, and where you're standing. And to me, you're far away from everybody else, because every time somebody kind of settles into like, okay, now the guys have done the Captor, have done the Captor X, they've done this and this and this, and you think, now they might have done everything possible. You come around with the Opus, or you come around with Genome, and when you're like, okay, they're doing it again. So you're constantly you're constantly revolutionizing things people are used to in a certain way, and like, oh, this is even better. So, and you're not getting enough credit for it. That's I'm just going to put out there.
I don't know. I think it's selling a new concept is the stupidest kind of business you may want to enter.
Yes.
Like history proves that when you're the one coming with a new concept, you never win. No. Like Apple made the iPad, but did not invent tablet, but made them good or nice to use. I think our concept, and let's be a little bit modest here, like the concept of playing an amp silently, I did not invent. It existed in the 70s, but like you said, with the progress of digital in the 2000s, it was, to me, obvious that we could make that concept evolve a little bit. Also, IR loaders. There was no IR loading capacity in any product when we released the first Torpedo cab.
Yeah, exactly.
And now it's mandatory. If you don't have that in your product as a digital modeler, you're probably making a mistake.
Yeah.
But in 2010, that was very new. But the being new or being innovative, that's tough, because it took me, and I still have to explain the concept. It took me probably until we had some competition on the digital load box stuff with very good products from UA or Boss, those are very good products. They took the concept and they used their marketing, which is awesome and big money, to actually make it more popular among people. The coming with a new concept costs a lot of money, because you need to explain. And to this day, I'm meeting with audio engineers or guitarists who are like, "What? How? No, it will kill the amp. No, I've sold tens of thousands of them, and so far I didn't have to repair that many amps, so they must be working. Frank, you wouldn't believe I have that not every week, but every time I do a trade show and I'm on the ground talking to like normal people, not you guys who are educated and that's your job to know those things. But when I talk to normal guitarists, could even be friends, I still have to explain the concept because they don't see the point. Like they know modeling since the pod, so like late 1990s or early 2000s. Oh, they know modeling. They've heard about it. They may or may not like or use it. But what we do is very niche compared to, oh, let's get rid of amps and let's use this because it's better. We don't get rid of amps, but we still use digital, but it's kind of a weird mix. So yeah, I mean, it's still a very niche product. Genome is different because it's amp modeling as a whole, like the entire chain, which is, by the way, that was my initial project. The Torpedo stuff actually had some success, but that was not what I was willing to do. I was willing to do amp modeling. The speaker side of this took off and took most of my time when it took off, but the real project was amp modeling.
Okay.
Because in 2006 when I started, I believe the XFX was just out, like it was the first version, and the rest pretty much sucked at that time.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
Like big time. And when you were using a Line 6 pod and you would put an IR loader after it, it was better, actually significantly better. So that's when I knew that, okay, that part is important. Probably we should spend more time on it. And the Fractal stuff was very good on the front end with the preamp and amp modeling, where other companies like Boss or Lansing were pretty bad at it. I mean, not bad. It was the best at that time. Okay, let's not rewrite history. It was the best, but it was very much lacking in comparison to a proper amp or an amp with IRs, or it was very far from it. But nowadays things have changed.
Yeah, but that was because there was a complete different approach that Fractal, Cliff in this case, took, where he said, like, if you want to do this right, you need more processing power, and you need to implement this for the processor which has enough power for the algorithm to take full advantage of the processing power. And that's not something that Boss or Line 6 did. They put some, as to my understanding, and I'm not like the super engineer, but they put chips in there which were pretty commercial for the most part, and they wanted to sell a product on a higher commercial level, whereas Fractal started out way smaller, but people who really were serious about tone were like, oh, okay, now that's a serious contender, obviously.
To me, the main difference is this. In 2005, or 2006, I don't know exactly when they started the project at Fractal, but it must have taken them at least a couple of years to get that thing working. Most of the digital stuff in our industry, so the guitar industry, guitar and bass, was for cheap devices application only.
Yeah.
Like you had Eventide trying to sell those absurdly expensive stuffs to studios.
Yeah.
Okay. But apart from them, digital meant cheap.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you would buy the tiny Marshall or the tiny Boss, all that stuff below $500, and you would buy that because you couldn't afford like the proper digital devices that were only for studios and some professional players, but the all the digital stuff was cheap, and that was it.
Yeah.
Like solid state has to be cheap, digital has to be cheap, and what Fractal changed, what I give them full credit for that, and is following up the in the steps of Eventide, trying to make actually high quality, high end digital devices for guitar and bass. And that was, as a concept, that was quite new. Like trying to sell digital to hardcore tube lovers, there was a challenge here. And they succeeded because, well, two things. to loop up with the distributors conversation earlier, Fractal went direct. So they used the new power of the internet to sell direct.
Yeah.
And that was rather new in 2005 and 6, forums especially. So they used that to sell, because I can guarantee you, if they were using a distributor in the loop and some retailers, and same with Scamper, the prices would have been crazy.
Yes.
It's already expensive, but it would have been like nuts. And not double the price, but close to it. So nobody would have bought it. So they had to use that. And it was possible thanks to the internet. So it's really a combination of things that made it possible. But again, selling high-end digital devices to end users happened thanks to, well, musicians on tour had to become sorry, I have the stupid Apple thing that
No worries.
when I do signs. So professional. Oh, don't start with that, because I know all the gestures and some of them are very, very dumb, but it's fun. And so professional touring acts started to two things: to become smaller or more efficient. Even bands like Metallica later on went into that route, like trying to be more efficient with their gear, and also starting to want to play silently on stage.
Yeah.
So those high-end devices actually were covering two things. You can play silent if you need to within ears, and your rig is suddenly, like, you remember those stupid big fridges full of like 48 unit racks, and you have 3 of them just for guitars.
Yeah.
Okay, that's gone. That's not coming back. That is gone.
Yes.
And because with devices more compact nowadays, again, thanks to progress in electronics, DSPs are cheaper, converters are cheaper, and the quality is awesome. You can get a very good sounding rig that fits in probably 4U, 6U, and you don't need more. And it saves a lot in touring costs.
Yes.
So it's a combination. It's like we call the perfect storm, a combination of several events, people getting smaller rigs, quality improving, prices decreasing on parts, and people getting acquainted with digital and being a little bit less afraid of digital in their everyday life.
Yes.
It's not just guitar. It's also your TV. It's also your car radio, which is digital. It's also a lot of things. Like, not everyone has a computer these days, but they have this, which is a computer.
Essentially.
And using a tablet to play guitar, it's not that exotic anymore, since the sound is not terrible. It's actually quite good nowadays.
Yeah.
So it's a really combination of things. So us, with the concept of the Torpedo line of products, it was really tapping into that. I started with forums and social media when they started as well. Like, when I started, YouTube was in its infancy. It was just the beginning. The first YouTube guys like Pete Thorne, Ryan Bruce, those guys were just started when we started. I'd equipped all of them because they were recording in their bedroom.
Yeah.
Okay. Ola Englund. I mean, all of those guys started in the 2006 to 2008 to 2010 times. And we were there with a device that was helping them doing their gear reviews because they were playing at home.
Yeah.
Probably our conversation sounds weird to a lot of younger players who just came up 10 years ago with all those tools, which are so awesome and sounding good nowadays. Like, even the entry level amps nowadays are pretty good compared to the garbage I had to play with when I was a kid. I mean, Frank, we have the same age. Jonathan, I don't know. But like in 95 or 92 or even 90, your options when you were not a rich kid were pretty terrible.
Yeah. Limited.
Even
limited.
your band.
They were
and Frank, you know, I know you were a rich kid since you were playing Diesel. And you were working at a store. And you got good prices, I'm sure.
No.
But
no, I actually worked my ass off to keep the money together, because up until, for me, it was a pretty big jump actually. Up until I bought the Diesel, because so every like for the 5 years before I bought the diesel, I had to like really play with lots of broken shit and make it sound, and I managed to make it sound good, you know, because at some point you just figure it out, and then at some point somebody gave me that just like as a goodwill gesture. It's like, hey, you can play with my amp, I don't need it. And it was like this 93 dual rectifier, the 2-channel one.
Yeah.
And this thing essentially sounds like shit. Yeah. Sounds like shit, except for that one channel that sounds good, which is the distorted channel. But so then I was like, okay, but how am I going to make this clean? Volume knob. So I didn't have channel switching, nothing. It was like volume knob, which was okay. And then I was like, okay, I got to get money together and like save money in order to get some good gear. And that's when I came across the diesel, and I was like, okay, now I know what to focus my money on. And I got my money together for like a year or something, everything I could like set apart. And then I bought the thing, and suddenly I was getting good sounds without having to work for it like an hour or something. It's like dialing in, sounds great. So no rich kit at all, and my options were limited and terrible as well. And since there wasn't much competition back then, everything was also super expensive, you know. Like some of the amps that you can buy today for like $100 or something, they would cost $250 or $300 back then, because there was no competition. They weren't competing with anyone, and now there's like a shit ton.
Oh, the margin.
Yeah,
the margins were awesome for manufacturers. Oh yeah, no, really, you wouldn't believe it. No, they were absolutely awesome. Very little competition, and for I mean, John, I believe in the 90s you were in Canada, but the American amps here in France or Germany were insanely high in price, because a brand like Mr. Boogie, for example, they don't have a distributor margin in the US or Canada. No. They just sell direct to retailers. While in Europe, they have a distributor. So you have an extra 30 to 40% margin on top. Yes. So everything doubles pretty much. Not doubles, but it's significantly more expensive. Plus shipping. And shipping those nice 4x12, it's not cheap. So the Mesa, anything American, to be honest, was... The Fenders were under control. But the Mesa stuff, anything a little bit boutiquey, wow, it was... that's why I'm joking about the rich kid things, because it took me 45 years to get a dual rectifier. So my first proper amp with an Angle Blackmore, and I was like probably 23 or 24, and I was working. But my JCM 900, I played death metal with that garbage of an amp, and I remember it vividly. I'm not doing that again if I can avoid it.
Yeah, I think you guys' market used to be substantially different in the 90s compared to what it is now, because I'm just going to make a little parallel here. Growing up in Canada, the big thing you wanted was either Marshall or Fender. So you think about it. You have an American company or a British company. We didn't talk about diesel. Didn't know what that was for the most part in the 90s. Bogner, that's American, but that sounds German. What's going on there? So all this like crossover of amplifiers, we didn't have that much diversity. Now, living here for the past 4 years, now I know that it's like in Germany, there was Kitty Hawk that was distributing the Dumble stuff and the Mesa stuff, and then they start to look inside, go, shit, we can build this ourselves, you know, because Europe has always had like this big problem getting their hands on American stuff. So now you have a German company building something that is catered more to the American market for the European market. In Canada, we had like Trainer, Fender, Marshalls, and you know, it was pretty limited. High watt, I never saw a high watt until it came here. It's like high watt for me was like, oh my god, those are so rare, man. It's like, what is going on? Like, I've never seen that. So there's brands like that I had never played. I would see them in magazines, but now we're talking about like worldwide distribution. So in Canada, you will see European stuff from the 90s that gets imported over there because now we can. You know, you got Reverb, you have eBay, you have all these things, but trying to think of like some dude in his basement in 1991 going, you know what? I'm tired of like this North American stuff. I want European hand-built stuff. Where do you start? Calling. It's like, do you speak English? No, sorry, I only speak German. Shit. There's no Google Translate. You can't learn a new language for a year before you actually buy from these guys. But now it's like everything's worldwide. There's way more people speaking English. We're not going to talk about speaking Chinese because that's going to come eventually, and I'm going to be screwed. But it's like now you have more Europeans that are speaking English now and speaking multiple languages. So reaching out to someone in, let's say, in Halifax in Canada, saying, "Hey, you build pedals, right? Yeah. Okay, we'd like to get your stuff here in France. Cool. But we have someone now on the team that can speak English." So I think that's why the market is so different now. And when you guys came out with the Two Notes stuff, I remember like, this is a French company? And I'm watching all the videos. You guys are talking in English. You know, it's like everything's perfect. And I'm like, they're talking to me. This sounds like a North American product. You know, it doesn't sound like something exotic from some other world somewhere. This is like guitar player stuff. Cool. And I don't think we ever had that crossover before with the North American territories and Europe, where we could see that the guitar players wanted the same fucking thing. Yeah. We wanted it simple. We wanted it at a price that makes sense. And we didn't want to pay the premium because it's hand built with fairy dust in some mountain in Naples. It's like, come on, you know, it's like, we're not there anymore. And we've lived through the economic crisis in 2008 with the market. And it seems like we're kind of in one of those places now again. So I'm seeing guitar players that are trying to be really vigilant with their money. So when you invest in something, you want to be sure it works, and you don't care where it comes from. You just want something solid.
Yeah.
And
it's interesting how some of these companies, like the alternative companies from all these other different parts of the world, like kind of rose to fame. I remember, so if I look at Diesel, for example, it's very interesting because for them, what applies is the so-called Scorpions principle. I'm talking about the band Scorpions.
Oh, okay.
So because a lot of people don't know that, but the Scorpions became famous in other parts of the world first because before they made it big in Germany, and people realized, hey, well, that's a German band. Why have I never heard of the Scorpions? Because they were way more famous in Japan and way more famous in the US than they were in Germany. And so the same thing applies to Diesel, where Diesel was trying to establish themselves in the European market, and they weren't able to because it was a high-end product, it was very expensive, and it was difficult to establish that. And most of the others, like big stores, they could have taken them on. They just bought, I don't know, Stevens, or they bought like a big chunk of Mesa Boogie or Soldano, and what was around that time. So we're like, sorry, can't spend any more money. And the reason, or the initial spark where this whole thing like exploded for them was actually because, and this is going to sound funny, but it's true, because Pamela Anderson bought a Diesel VH4 for Tommy Lee for his birthday because it was so funny and exotic and extravagant looking, and she went to a store and bought one of those for his birthday, gave it to him, and then on his birthday party, a lot of people saw it and was like, wow, this thing looks cool. This looks so different. And that's where suddenly in the US, it totally exploded for them, up to the point where in Germany, people were like, oh, Diesel, wow, that's one of these US brands. No, they're sitting in fucking Bavaria, dude. just around the corner. And nobody knew. And suddenly, everybody wanted Diesel. So sometimes these kind of companies take a weird way in order to reach like a wider audience, and sometimes it's like this initial spark, essentially.
Well, it comes down, I believe, to the fact that until today, a lot of the market, so I'm talking players, are looking up to the US market.
Yes,
like that's for, let's say, for several genres. But let's say country music, rock, metal, maybe not metal as much, but still, the US market is what predominates. And if you make it in the US, you may have a chance to make it in Europe, selling the same stuff. But just because whatever star is using it in the US, that's how people will notice. So it's for the Western world. It doesn't work the same in Southeast Asia, apart from Japan, because the Japanese market is looking a lot at the US players, but which is not the same for China or other countries over there. But for the Western part of the world, the US market is still there.
Yeah.
And look at Canadian singers or guitarists. They have to make it in the US.
Yeah, that's
and,
right.
Celine Dion is not singing in the Canadian Las Vegas,
No.
which is, I don't know if it exists, but probably there is one. No, there's no Canadian Las Vegas.
No, I wouldn't know about it. There's not.
Winnipeg, the new Canadian Las Vegas, in the desert
geez.
somewhere.
But that's also a great observation, though, because when you think about it, it seems like because the U.S. has been so important for so long. If we were talking earlier about NAMM, right? That's in the U.S. People from Europe and all over the world, when they want to get that exposure, they try to pierce through the American market first because there's way more cultural influence there. So you think about like, when we speak about some of the great guitar players, sure, there's some I'm going to say it, European exceptions, but for the most part, you're thinking like Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, guys like that. Even Yngwie went to the States, right? And he's still there now. So a lot of people see the value. It's like, okay, if you want to have some kind of cultural shift, that's where the scene is happening.
Yeah.
You think of Nashville. It's like you got guitar players from Canada, from Europe, all over the place, and they're waiting on tables during the day, and then they have a gig, they're singing, they're playing it, and you have some of the world's best musicians out there. And they're not in Cologne, they're not here where I'm living in Belgium, they're not in France, they move out to go there, right? So it makes sense for companies to want to reach that market first, because if you can get something like this in the hands of like a great musician who's going to use it and speaks, high volumes of this product and say, I've been using this on tour for 5 years. It never failed me. And I love the company. I love what they do. That's great marketing because it's not bullshit. It comes from someone actually using it. Yeah. But if you're giving it to some Joe Blow like me, and I'm saying I love it, who cares? One person's going to know about it.
I care, Joe. I care.
Yes, but for the most part, other people wouldn't, right? Because you need someone with reach, with influence, and that's where the American market is. Now, if you were to reach out to someone like Richie Blackmore and you gave him that and he was saying, yeah, this is amazing, there would be a certain demographic that would be like, okay, I might consider this and look at it. But for the most part now, you're looking at guys like a guitar player from... what's the name of the band? I suck with names. Like Periphery. Like, let's say the guy's...
Misha,
yeah, Misha. Let's say he was saying, I love this product. Well, he knows how to market because he's been on YouTube, he's doing tours, he's made albums, all this stuff. So if this guy speaks highly of what you do, that's great. But if you have some guy with like 5,000 subscribers that's saying this product is awesome, you're not getting the same product placement at all. So you need that reach, and a lot of it, sadly, is still in the United States.
It's still the biggest homogeneous market in the world, right? Yeah. In terms of revenue or disposable income, because even if Europe is bigger as a whole, as a market, you have to speak how many languages? It's impossible. Plus some parts of it, they can't afford what I'm doing, or just 0.001% of the population can. So the thing with the US is that you can leverage if the product is good and if it speaks to people. You can leverage still the biggest market in the world, and then the others are looking at it because if it works there, it's probably worth taking a look. Still, my very first artist who contacted us when we started selling the Torpedo in 2008, end of 2008, was Richard Kruspe from Rammstein.
Yeah.
Which is a counterexample of a German band who actually made it big outside of Germany. But it's always worth looking at the documentaries of the very first tour they did in the US, because it was very much DIY. It was awesome, but it was very much DIY. And you can also in history look at how hard it was for bands like Iron Maiden to make it in the US, or even the Beatles at the very beginning, or some band, like massive band in Europe, actually had a hard time making it into the US, because they speak weird, those English people, and not as weird as Canadian, but still a little bit weird. And but yeah, I don't think it changed that much for the past 40 years in that regard. What changed really is the rise of the Eastern culture, and the fact that like making it in China, like they don't care too much about Joe Satriani or Steve Vai.
Okay.
The rock music didn't really happen there. They do play guitar, but it doesn't have like that. Especially like, let's say the whole, like you were mentioning Vai and Satriani or Yngwie. So we're talking about probably some of the golden age of electric guitar in the like mid 80s to mid 90s. That whole area did not happen in China. The whole glam thing, the LA blow and prostitutes kind of things, that did not happen in China. China was closed at the time. And so they just skipped to something else. Or if you look at like K-pop bands, like Korea is big. They are very influential in terms of music for the whole world now. And we don't see it. I mean, I'm too old. I don't see it. I don't know any of those bands. I know we work with some of them, but that's not the kind of stuff I'm listening to. But they are huge, like massive. Maybe not like Taylor Swift huge, but not that much under, again, for China or Eastern Asia. And I mean, it's not easy to actually go into those markets. It's way easier to go into the US market because the culture is different, but not that different. While in Eastern Asia, wow, it doesn't work the same at all. I'm still trying to figure it out. I still have to work on it.
Wow. Okay. While we're talking about product and how to explain product in a good way, I'd just like to take the opportunity to everybody who has maybe not heard or not gotten his head into what Two Notes actually does, and to put it in like a very simple format, because in essence what it does is if it saves your amp. It saves your tube amp. And if you like to play your amp and you want to play your amp everywhere you go, if it's at home or if it's, in a place where you cannot play it loud, you guys provide the solution. But not only like, hey, here's a little box, you can connect it to your amp. You have like 3 different funny cabinets that you can, use 3 different presets. No, you guys created like an entire ecosystem of cabinets where you can apply different microphones and all that stuff. And for a lot of people, that might be like absolute overkill. But then again, if you make it complicated, if you go into it, it's like, oh, I'm gonna take the most out of it, it's gonna get complicated. If you keep it easy, nowadays I see myself connecting my amp, and I have like three or four like go-to cabinets with certain mics, and they work for 90% of the stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just great. And to me, what really sets you apart is that it's super seamless. We were talking about impulse responses before. When you started out in 2008, I knew what impulse responses were, and I also knew what they were in regards to speaker simulations, because I was tingling around with a friend's Axe-Fx, and back then you had companies that were making like these IR packs. They had like one cabinet and then each file was like one microphone with one distance, angled or not angled. So you would end up with like hundreds of files where you're like, okay, now I have to try all these files to find the setting that I like. But the problem is, after 10 files, you have no clue how the first one sounds, because your memory has been completely erased. And that's where you guys totally stand out, because with you, it's seamless. It's like you connect the editor. You don't have a file. You don't have to throw around shit tons of files. No, you just move the microphone the way you want it. You select the microphone. You change the distance and all of that kind of stuff. And essentially, like I said, the bottom line kind of forward marketing message is, if you want to play your amp and you want to play it everywhere, and you don't want to bother people with what you play, then that a Captor X or a Captor is the way to go. Because there's just no way around it. Everything else is way more expensive. I mean, a Captor X does go for what, like 520, 530 something?
Yeah, around that, 520, yeah.
Exactly. And essentially with that thing, I once said, if I need to play somewhere and they tell me you cannot play a cabinet here, this is a silent stage, I just take my head and I take a Captor X and I'm good to go. I'm good to go everywhere I go. And the guy who is going to be front of house is going to be happy. He's going to have way less of a hassle, because I've already done 60, 70% of the work for him. He just moves the fader around, Yeah. That's the thing. So,
which is what they want to do or not to do, like as little as possible.
Yeah, exactly.
Like everybody else.
Exactly. That's the
yes. So the concept was this. So we need to remember, we talk about a time where modeling sucks. Okay, it's not great.
Yeah.
Any tube amp, any proper tube amp will sound better than anything digital. So the question was, it was the beginning of home studios, and I have two needs. I need to record amps in my home. Again, that thing in my home. And you don't have that. I'll make you other signs later. They're awesome.
Yeah.
So I need to record and I need to play, and I can't do either of the things because, well, I'm playing a 100 watt amp on a 4x12 because that's what I want to do, or just let's say a Fender combo. But even that is too loud. Like the minimum volume I can play them at is already too much. So I have a loudness issue, I have a sound volume issue at home. Then if you are a little bit more professional, or if you do gigs, you will go to stages where, for the past 25 years, new norms apply in terms of how loud it can be at the venue or even on stage, just to protect the audition of the people, of the attendance, of the audience. Yeah. So how do you do that? Well, you need to get rid of every sound source as much as you can. So first, the best players, they go. Okay, that's the first one who went direct. Then you have the drummer. The drummer is complicated, so you may want to lock him behind some plexiglass or go with a drum machine. Then you have, well, the singer is usually not an issue, but you have the let's say the trumpets or everything. You will have systems to lower the sound level as well. And then there's the guitar player who loves playing. I mean, I love playing with 4x12s behind me. That's the proper way to do it. But that was the proper way when PAs did not exist.
Yeah.
And when you didn't have norms to actually try and not destroy the audience audition. So the with all of that in mind, and I don't want to use modelers because that's not my sound. Okay, it's good, it's practical. When I travel, just a pair of headphones, that's fine. But when I'm doing things seriously, and I want to record or I want to play on stage with my own system without having to replace it, that's when the Two Notes concept comes at play and offers, I think, and still to this day, a good. It's less of a compromise versus going with a digital device.
Yeah.
A fully digital device, digital pedals, all of that in one box. Even if they are awesome today, lots of very good products. But if I want the sound of my tube amp, the easiest way to keep the sound of my tube amp is using my 2 amps.
Yes.
And that will never get replaced, because it's not just about the sound. It's also about the ergonomics. It's also about having a fast setup.
Yes.
It's about the user experience, and I'm talking about the customer. The guitarist, not the audience. In terms of sound, let's be honest. At a concert, nobody really notices the difference between digital, analog.
No.
And not only they don't notice, but they probably don't care either. So it's, again, today, since we have very good solutions, it's probably not where, in a live situation, probably not the most, let's say, strategic part. The sound will be good, okay? Good enough for most people. But it's the user experience from the guitarist point of view,
yes,
or bassist point of view, where I want to do things a certain way. And that's where I think we provide a good solution, which is not as much a compromise as going fully digital. But again, you see how long it takes to explain the concept. It's still something like, I still think that most guitarists don't know what a DI is. And when they should be using one or have to use one, they are like, no idea. That's something you should have in your gig bag everywhere you go, especially if you play live. Not in the studio because they have them, but if you play live, you may need some isolation transformer or a DI of some sort, so you don't have to run into a lot and in a world of pain when you go to that local stage where everything's humming, buzzing, hissing in your guitar signal. And the concept of a DI is not new. Still, impedances are a mystery for most guitarists. I mean, those things are still very complicated for, like, I'm still trying to figure out how to set up properly a Floyd Rose on my guitar, okay? And I'm probably not the most average guitar player you would find. I'm probably, I know those things. I still give my guitars to someone to have them set up because I don't want to fight that thing forever. And I'm like, okay, just do it. Just do it.
Just the other day, just the other day, I saw a meme of like typical scene: some guy in a car, girls reaching into the car. You know what kind of scene I'm talking about? It's like, hey, honey, for $50, I'll do whatever you want me to do. And the guy, so the other bubble says, well, can you restring and set up a Floyd Rose?
Yeah. That's probably what I pay to get that done.
That's the other thing. You know, the Floyd Rose has been around for such a long time, and still up to this day, I haven't seen any kind of, well, there has been like some evolvement around it, but it's still the same hassle if you want like a double locking tremolo. You know, it's still the same. Yeah. It's still the same hassle. That's why. I had one guitar in my life with a Floyd Rose system, and I had one situation where I used that guitar and one of my strings broke, and the other guitar was I had a backup guitar, thanks God, but it wasn't the same guitar. It was like okay, worst case scenario, I can play this, but I never really tried playing this, so the show ended up being like very uncomfortable, and that's why I decided no more Floyd Rose ever in my life, because that's like,
Well, especially since you don't play unique notes, you play chords.
Yeah.
And probably lots of them with lots of distortion. It's not easy to retune the guitar.
No.
When you do that. Like when you play single notes, you may bend them a little and just try to compensate. But
yeah, but you can't play solo.
The kind of music.
You can't play solos for the rest of the set. It's not going to work, you know.
Yeah. No, I know. No, and I mean, those things are still kind of a mystery for a lot of guitarists who either are not interested in that or don't want to learn for whatever reason, or I mean, I'm too lazy. I know the reason for me, but and it's like that. The load box concept, the digital load box concept, it's still kind of complicated for guitarists who they understand pedals. Okay, they understand the amp, the guitars. They probably have 10 guitars on the walls if they can afford them, and they will buy another guitar before they think about fixing their noise issue or their sound level issue, or spend money on something that looks like an expensive accessory. And That's just how it is. I mean, it's the same with cars. It's the same, like anything that's flashy and that you can wave at the front of your best friend so they're jealous. That's where we put the money in. And I'm the same. Okay, I'm not saying I'm better. I'm exactly the same.
Look, try and explain MIDI to musicians who've never used MIDI, and it's been around for a long fucking time at this point.
The early
right?
80s.
And try to explain to someone how to how to set up like a whole MIDI rig. They're like, but what does it do? Like, what does it sound like? No, MIDI doesn't have a sound, but it sounds MIDI. No. It doesn't affect the sound, dude. Okay, where do we start, right? And you try to explain that to a musician, and it's hard. And even though I understand it, sometimes I confuse stuff with what I thought I understood of MIDI from before, and I have to correct myself. So if we think about this concept of coming up with a new technology to facilitate musicians, the education part of it, it doesn't come free with the package. It's something that some people will dig into and go down the rabbit hole. Other people will not. And if we translate this to the whole concept, because Frank earlier was saying that, like 10, 15 years ago, if you wanted to use IRs, it was complicated. And he hasn't said anything more true since we started the podcast. I remember having to use plugins that were dedicated to reverb.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I could upload like these IRs with guitars. And the thing is that I remember how horrendous the experience was because you're uploading it and then you're like, okay, so this one has an SM57 straight at the cone. This one here has it off axis. This one is 2 inches from the cone. This one is, and you're going through them and you're like, I don't know what sounds good. But I was like crunch time. I had to record. I had to get my shit done. And I'm trying to use this stuff and it sounded like crap. And how I discovered Two Notes was actually a friend of mine who's an audio engineer. And he's like, are you still using these stupid like convolution reverb plugins so you can upload your IRs? I'm like, yeah. He's like, why don't you get Wall of Sound? I'm like, what the hell is that? So he sends me a link. I'm like, so I don't know. I think it was like $90 back then. And I'm like, dude, $90 is, oh, no. Listen, it's the best $99 you're ever going to spend. So I'm like, really? So he starts to explain to me. I buy it. I start using it. And sure enough, this is like 10 years later, and I'm still using a Wall of Sound because I was looking to move the frickin' mics. I wanted more mic options. And sometimes you use those static IRs, and they don't sound very good with what you're using. And you're saying, like, you don't know how the person recorded them, right? Now you have, like, if you want cabinets from Invaders here in Belgium, you got them. They're there. You want to use, some Fender stuff, some Celestion, whatever. All the cabs are there. You got the microphone options. You got the room options. And Frank and I were talking about like the fact that we're like Two Note fanboys, and we're not ashamed of it because these are like the most practical tools we have at our disposal. If I want to record, this is a square room. It's really small. I got a lot of great amps behind me. But if I stick an SM57 here and I set my amp at the sweet spot, I have standing waves. I have all sorts of shit that's going on in this room that I cannot counter. It gets picked up by the microphone and my amp's going to sound like crap. Yeah. Now, if I'm using this, I'm countering all these issues. Someone might say, but you're missing the speaker moving air. Fuck off. I can move air as much as I want, but I have all this weird shit going on in this room. Who cares if I don't have the air in the mix? I need to get rid of all those problems, right? And you guys offered that. So I started with Wall of Sound. Then I bought the Captor. And I haven't moved on to anything else since. It's integrated into my workflow. I've made about 500 videos on YouTube, and 90% of it is with the Captor and the Wall of Sound. And I'm not saying that to kiss your ass. This is just the truth. It's one of the, if not the most indispensable tool that I have here. But even then, when I started using it, I didn't fully understand how to get the most out of it. So I understand your point of having to educate constantly.
To me, there are two types of users. Well, first of all, I'd say this. So, Capture X or Capture, they all come with a software. So, One of Sound, now we have Genome. Capture X has a Torpedo remote software to control it from your computer. Only 50% of our users are actually downloading and activating the software side of things. Which means...
Wow, okay.
Which means half of them are using the 6 presets on the Capture X. And I think the big success of the Capture X is all the attention we put into designing those 6 presets, which are widely different. And the thing I say to people who are not willing to dig into this, I had the conversation in Paris the other day at the trade show, and one of the guys was like, "Oh, but I'm buying so many options, and I'm a simple guy. Like, I just want one good sound." And I told him, "Look, those options are here for when you need or want them.
Yes,
but it's totally fine just using that one sound, because to get that one sound, I need all that other shit you're paying for. You don't need the other cabinets. That's fine. You take the one you like. Like, nobody needs. We have 700 something cabinets in the library, more since we released the Jensen collection last week, but more than 700. Nobody needs that. Okay, I don't know half of them, right? I mean, you may need them. Okay, let's say probably 20 people need them, but the others, they don't. And they just need one that does what they want, which is the same with any modelers. Like, who plays 50 different amps and effects in one night with their band? Nobody does, apart from maybe some cover bands, but that's all. And that's a few hundreds people, maybe 1,000 around the world. The others, they will find the amp they like, clean, crunch lead, that's it. Yeah. So that's the modeling world, and it's the same for us. So the attention to detail for us is to think about those guys who don't want to mess with the software, who don't have the time, or don't understand what mic they should choose, how they put them in the room, because that requires some knowledge, okay? We don't teach them that. We give them the tools, but you need to learn how to use them. And most people have no clue. Like, they will go on the internet, see, oh, this guy recorded that album by having this microphone here, 20 centimeters out of the axis, and this, and they try to replicate that. They don't know how to use their ears to do that. They don't. So they just read something, try to make it in the software. And if the software doesn't allow for that, they're lost, entirely lost, because they don't know from what they're hearing, what they play, to the mastering part of the recording. They don't know what will happen. They don't know what the sound engineer will do, so they don't know how to do it at home. And honestly, our products don't fix that. We try to offer presets, but let's say a preset I designed with one amp may not work. Like, I designed it with a Vox, whatever. It will not work with your lead tone, with your Mesa Boogie at all. That's right. It won't work. Yep. It will suck. But so we try to make presets that are kind of average to sound good with in many situations. Again, for those 50% of the people who will never, ever use the software. But it's fine not to want to use the software. Another automotive example, because I like this one very much. Look, I like sports car. Sports car in the 80s were widow makers, okay? Yeah. Because they were very powerful, but you had no computer, no nothing. So driving a Porsche or those BMWs back in the day under the rain, it was actually really dangerous. So you had to know how to drive. And anybody who would sell you those cars would probably tell you, go on a track, learn how to drive it under the rain or whatever before you actually drive it with your family at the back, if there is a back. Today, a computer is driving for you. So any moron like me can buy any car, even if it's 1,000 horsepower, and I can drive it under the rain, okay? Which was not possible. So the computer is doing the work for you. Sure, you can disconnect it, but if you leave it on, the car will be awesome to drive, and it won't try to kill you at every turn. There is no tools that are really able to do that for you. That's why I do believe AI will help with that. But like, I want to sound like this, and then the AI can actually do the work for you. And show you or not show you what it's doing to get to the sound. Because ultimately, most people don't want to learn how to pick the right microphone and cabinet and put it where it makes sense. They don't really want to learn that, or they don't have the time, or because it requires time, experience, probably someone teaching you. They just want the end result. That's why modelers are so popular, because you have 3,000 presets, you go through all of them. It's the same with synthesizers. Like, as I'm a keyboard player as well, I'm pretty terrible at that, but I do enjoy synthesizer sounds, and I just buy sound banks because sure, I could go and dig and try to move the oscillators, and I don't take a great pleasure in doing that. I don't have a lot of time, so I just want the sound of whatever song I liked when I was little, and I just want to play Alphaville or Aha or YouTube stuff, and I just want the sound now. So I will buy it and I will get it, and it will be good enough. So I'm never. I know my engineers would get angry when people don't even try, but I know I wouldn't try. I would just try and get the end result. And if the product is not giving it to me, that's the product who's not good enough.
Yeah.
And if you look at, like, who's read the user manuals for an iPhone or even for your car, right? Who's read? I mean, I'm doing it because I'm a nerd, but nobody else.
Yeah.
Everybody expect the product to work, and you don't have to learn how to use it. Look, I'm playing with this tool to measure stuff, but if you don't know how to use it and how to read that part, it's useless.
Exactly.
So I have to learn how to, and it's not a very complicated tool, okay? But still, another sign.
It counts as a thumbs up.
That's amazing.
I think I broke my MacBook. But if you don't learn how to use it, it's useless. Again, I don't think it's a sign of the times. I think it's a sign of the fact that products are so good today that you don't have to be an expert to use an iPhone or a car and what's inside the car or the iPhone is incredibly complicated.
Yes.
You need that complexity to actually make it simple and powerful enough later on. And like, I did not have to adjust the light on my camera. It does it for me. A software does it. A camera 40 years ago, you had to know the speed, you had to know the lighting, the distance for focus. You had to know all of that. Otherwise, you can't shoot a movie. Today, you just press rec, that's it, and it's pretty good. Is it perfect? No. Is it getting better by the minute? Absolutely.
Yes.
And so again, I'm never angry at my customers saying, "Oh, I don't want to read that shit. I don't want to learn that stuff." That's fine. I'm doing it for you, and I'm giving you a tool that does it for you. And that's when, in my opinion, and that's what I'm trying to tell my team all the time. If people need to read the manual to understand a very basic function of the tool is probably wrong. There is something wrong with it. We need to make it simpler. And it doesn't mean we need to make it cheaper or to make it less effective. On the contrary, I want it to be as effective as powerful, but I want to work for the people who don't have the time or the will or the expertise to actually dig. And for people who want to dig, like you, John, you can still do that.
Yep.
Download the software and you go into the rabbit hole. But you shouldn't have to do that to use a Two Notes product. That's what I'm saying. We don't always succeed, but at least we try to do that.
Yeah, and one of the advantages that we have too now is that with YouTube, you have people who are really knowledgeable, and they go and make content to explain how to do the deep dive. So if you have your iPhone and you're like, you're looking at it like a monkey going, you can't figure it out. There's someone who's going to tell you, okay, these are the things you want to switch on. These are the things you want to switch off. And even if you don't understand it, you do it and you go, damn, my phone battery's not draining as fast anymore. That's awesome. And I think guitar players could use the same thing. And some people are already doing that. Let's say you have a Two Note product. You guys are trying to simplify it, but there's still some people out there who are going to be really confused by it. So if someone comes along, makes a video, says, okay, this is what DI means, and this is why you need it. And then someone goes, oh, okay, so I can just capture the signal coming from the amplifier and not have it blow up my interface. and I have this thing in the middle that can just capture that at a level that's just good for my audio card, and then I can just add IRs on top? Yes. Oh, well, why didn't they say that to begin with? No, they did. You just didn't understand the language or the concept. Someone simplifying it for you might help you appreciate the technology better, and you actually need this damn technology, and you don't know it yet. You can't verbalize it because you don't have an understanding or a grasp of the technology you're actually using. Look at these frickin' microphones. You know how many people don't understand microphones? And they've been here forever.
Yeah.
Right? Polar pattern, proximity effect, the fact that a microphone is actually the very first EQ you introduce in your signal chain, right? People think that this is capturing the pure sound, what your ears are hearing. Like, no, there's a frequency spectrum that there's going to be like spikes and dips and stuff like that. But people still go to karaoke. They still grab the damn microphone and put it up to their face and get the... Everyone's like, ooh, that's cringy. Yes.
I don't think that's going to change.
That's not going to change.
I think it's here to stay. But it's the same with many. I mean, that it's the same with many objects around us in our lives. I mean, you don't need to know how a microwave operates to actually be able to heat up some milk. And there are many tools. I've studied electronics, so I'm interested in understanding the things, how an AC unit is working, how a TV is working. Actually, the TV technology changed between the time I learned how it was working and the flat screen of today. I was interested in that. Most people are not. They are just users, and they are interested in other things, which is totally fine. Like, I'm not very good with... engines. I understand the basic principle of it, but what should I tweak to make it work better, faster, slower, whatever? I'm not very good with that. Also, the technology evolved a lot. So it's totally fine. And I think there's a funny saying we have. So when we get angry at a customer, which sometimes because they really don't want to understand what we're trying to explain, and we are obviously failing at our task. And I'm like, let's just tell him to resell the stuff and buy for the same amount, but with guitar lesson. That's probably a better investment. And I should apply this to myself all the time. I keep buying shit and not guitar lessons. And I know it would be a way better investment. But it goes the same with sound engineering. Yeah. Like, to learn how to use the tool. And there are some very basic principle. Look, there is an interesting trend on YouTube today where apparently people discover how to set up the input level for amp modeling with their audio interface. And I'm like, oh, come on. Like, what? Those advice don't make sense. Like, they don't apply to everyone. Stop saying this is a solution. It's not. Like, you need to adapt. But gain staging for most guitarists, impossible to figure out. To figure out. And we have to answer that every day, several times a day. Don't push it up to the max to then lower it, to then push it up again and do EQ and then pushing it up again. It's like you're just adding noise to noise to noise to noise. And yes, you hear you created it, not the product. Yeah. Like, disconnect everything. It's silent. So it's not the product. And it's the same with magazines. Like, I remember as a kid, I would buy Guitar magazine and say, oh, another article about how to set up a Floyd Rose, or another article about blues lick and pentatonic stuff. But the thing is this, they need to have those articles every year, because there are new players or some older players who need some refreshment on what they think they knew, or because if you don't do that, well, people won't learn. You need to keep repeating those things, and I do that. I mean, I used to be a teacher at the university, so I know that repetition is the basis of teaching. But that input level controversy on YouTube, I just can't.
It has to be at -18, or else you're not getting the optimal sound.
Don't use the gain knob on the interface. Don't use the gain knob. That's bad.
I have a question. I have a question around ease of use, because you said 50% of the people who buy a Captor or Captor X, they don't get into the software side of things. I've been looking around a little bit, and I found that you have like some kind of exchange portal for like. So what I see here is there are rigs for Guillaume, which essentially are presets with like different elements in it. You have presets for Wall of Sound, which obviously that's the previous platform. You have Torpedo captures, which are definitely not Torpedo presets. That's something different.
Those are kinda IRs using our technology that people can capture with a software that is now a little bit old and that we absolutely need to refresh, which is called Blend IR, which is a software where you can actually capture, I believe, 8 different impulse response of your system and mix them together, EQ them. It's a pretty powerful tool. It's just that we didn't find the time to refresh it in the past few years. But so people can capture the stuff and upload it into.
But
Exchange.
the question is, why is there no possibility to just exchange like TOB files? So Torpedo presets. Maybe that would be an effective way to kind of make people engage in. Oh, okay. So somebody created a preset that's great for Marshall JCM 800s. I play a JCM 800. I might want to use their preset.
I believe you can do that.
You can? Frank. Maybe I'm not educated enough.
Yeah. But this is okay. First of all, Exchange. It's actually an old tool we've always had pretty much, but we are renewing it. So it's kind of a prototype of the new version of Two Notes Exchange. So the only preset you find are for Wall of Sound, but the format of the preset is the same for every unit. So I'm talking about the file extension. So the dot, top, or whatever, they are the same. So you can actually load other type of presets. Today, Exchange you need to consider it a little bit of a prototype. We have a lot of ideas about how we want it to work. Also, put the emphasis on the fact that people can interact and ask questions to the people who loaded it and have a little conversation. So it's not quite there yet to its final form, but it's the first Pokemon, not the big ass one. It's the tiny one, the shitty Pikachu. Okay, then we would get to the big guy with a power.
Exactly,
shitty Pikachu. Awesome.
Cool. Okay,
getting there.
Okay, that's good because I was just thinking that might be a way for people to like maybe especially the guy who says like, okay, I don't want to get into the software side of things, but if they're like easy to exchange presets of certain certain cabinets and whatnot, then it might be easier for these people to be like, okay, maybe I should consider this because I have the 6 presets and they're okay, but maybe I find something that like suits my purpose a little bit more. Just a thought.
But again, those people would have to use the software, and they don't. Not because they don't know that thing exists, but because it works.
Yeah.
And it works well enough so someone front of house can do quick, and it's done. We also have a tone control that is very powerful on the front of the device that changes the tone of all the presets at once. So it's kind of a voicing for the unit itself type of parameter. So with 6 preset, that big tone control, and probably some EQ at the front of house, you're set. And unless you're willing to dig into it, you probably don't need to go too deep and search for too long. That's the thing. That was the concept, and I think that's the success of that unit, which is you have a lot of powerful tools. You probably don't need more, but if you want more, just go into the software side of things. It's still 50% who actually use it.
Yeah.
I have a question for Guillaume. So Frank is a big fan of the Captor X, and we've talked about it, and he's told me some of the differences, but I haven't had time to go look it up, and I know it's been out for a while, and it's a shame on me for not looking it up, but I figure, hey, I got the guy who creates these things, so I might as well ask him instead of Google, right? So I'm using this guy, which is like the older version. What really makes the difference between the technology that went into this first iteration, which you can still buy, and the Captor X? What are we looking at in terms of differences? If I were to go out and buy one today, and I didn't know between this model and the Captor X, what would make me sway one way or the other?
I think it depends on the application. There are many tiny changes internally. The analog part is similar on the input side, except the Captor X has an isolation transformer, but mainly because the Captor X also has a power supply, which you don't need for a Captor, or you can use phantom power just for the output. But the Captor X has a power supply. You may run into some grounding issue. So we're like ground loops. So we added an isolation transformer. I think to me, it's if you're in the studio, it's interesting. I need to stop making signs. That's the Italian part of my ancestors that is speaking like, come on. So if you're in the studio, Captor X is interesting. If you want to print something with the simulation because you have your few presets you're using on everything and it's quick, you don't have to look back, it's done. If you're willing to keep the let's say the flexibility, you can use one output for like dry recording, one output wet recording with the speaker sim and everything, and you still get to mess with it with Wall of Sound or Genome, or you just use the final recording with the speaker sim. The other interesting thing is that, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of our users are just bedroom players like myself, and the headphones out on the Captor X is pretty awesome.
Oh yeah.
So it's stereo, and again, if the idea is just to get a headphones output out of your amp, that's probably one of the best headphones output you could get, and definitely the best for the money you could get on the market today. But that's not really you, John. For recording, I think the main difference would be, do I want to have it direct and I don't touch anything or not? For people on stage, it's a huge difference because you will not use another speaker sim after your analog captor. You want to go direct to front of house. Yeah. And you may plug your IEM into the headphones out of the Captor X. I mean, there are many tiny things in terms of the output setup of the output. Since you have two outputs, you can send one signal with one EQ, another signal with another EQ, depending on your sending to front of house or monitors. If you want to have something different in your monitors, so. The Captor X has more flexibility. It can still do the dry thing, but it gives you more flexibility into your recording or playing live. And that's pretty much it. The load box part is very similar. The line out is different because you have the digital into the Captor X, so it's not designed the same. You don't need the phantom power because it's powered, the Captor X. So that's the main thing. To be honest, usually, I mean, for sound engineers, they either use the analog captor, or when they can find one, they use the Torpedo Reload, which is a very, very good product. And they use the modeling into their DAW. But for, let's call them regular guitar players, they just want headphones out, and they want to record what they have on the headphones out directly into their demo. And it works great. That's easier that way.
And can you upload? Oh, sorry, Frank. Can we upload IRs onto the Captor X?
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Use your own stuff. You can mix two. I mean, it's a different way to do it. But to me, it's faster. Like if I was still recording stuff, which I don't have the time to, but if I was still recording stuff, I would probably use a Captor X just for the ease of use. I was mainly recording demos, like not proper albums. I was just an amateur sound engineer. And for demos, what kind of sound are you searching for? Done. And I don't have the time or the budget to reamp or to go back to the recording or to spend 5 hours finding the right mic. No. This is the type of sound you're searching for. And it was, I mean, if you think about it, back in the day, without those digital tools, you would have one cabinet, you would have probably a pair of microphones, That's it. Like nobody's reamping anything afterwards. There's no budget. There's like 1,500 euros to record 4 tracks. That's it. I'm not spending 20 weekends on that. I have this weekend, and at the end, it's done.
Yeah.
And for Captor X, it's more like a live type of situation, and it works amazingly well in that type of situation where you don't want to mess forever with your guitar or bass.
I have my favorite application for the Captor X is actually twofold. One is like similar to yours, where I'm just gonna use both outputs in stereo, and I use the what's it called? Twin tracker. That's when I want I don't have a lot of time, but I want to record like a backend track or something, and I want the guitars to be like done. I don't want to record like 2 tracks, just one take, and that's like the easy part. But the other one, where it's like a little bit more like in depth, my favorite application is I also use both outputs. One output is like the cap that I just chose at the time, and the other one is dry without any cabinet applied, which obviously in isolation sounds terrible because you don't have a cabinet. But then afterwards, if I'm not sure about the sound, or if it doesn't sit well in the mix, I recab the whole thing. I just like use, back then I used Wall of Sound, now it's Genome, and I just use that dry without a cabinet track, and I just create the cabinet in the plugin, which is great because it gives you like a lot of flexibility. So these are like my 2 favorite scenarios for Captor X.
Yeah, makes sense.
So you guys are trying to push me into buying a Captor X, right?
Yes.
Frank has been telling me since we started the podcast. He's like, dude, you need a Captor X, and I keep like really stalling on it because I have everything kind of streamlined here. But now I'm like, imagine if I didn't have to use Wall of Sound on my tracks, because I could get the IRs that I want directly into Captor X and just switch to the ones I need. So yeah, I think I'm gonna have to look at that.
Yeah, I know a guy.
Oh, you know a guy? I don't know him as well as you do, but I know a guy too.
So we usually round this off with a round of rapid fire questions, which is Jonathan's domain. Everybody gets asked a couple of funny questions, which are handpicked by Jonathan. So Jonathan, take it away.
I just want to say that I spent all night thinking about these 5 questions.
Right.
I lost a lot of sleep, so don't let me down. Please don't let me down. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so I'm going to change it up a bit, because usually I'm more focused on like gear, guitar pedals, stuff like that. But I want to mix it up. There's going to be some of that. But let's say that you had to convince someone of buying 3 of your IRs for the Wall of Sound, and they're like, okay, I need 3. I don't know which ones to go for. I play rock and metal and blues, so I need something that's really versatile. If you could pick like 3 of the IRs, which one would you recommend?
Okay. All right. There's one that actually we don't sell because it's in every product since the dawn of times for us, which is called the Brit Vint C. It's a Marshall 4x12 cabinet with vintage 30. That's the first 4x12 that I bought as a young adult.
Is that the one that's in here when you switch your guitar?
Yes, that's the one we tried to model the analog speaker sim from. So that amp, that cabinet is the first proper cabinet that I bought in my life. It's here. One of the speakers is dead though. So I need to fix. It did not survive one of the tests we did, but my dog, sadly, the dog is passed, but the dog ate the bottom of that cabinet. The cabinet has a history, and in terms of sound, it's a very interesting mid-focused type of V3 4x12, and it's very easy to mix. So that's why we have it in every version of all of our products, because it gets you into the mix very easily. It's not a lot of bottom end, not a lot of top end, but it's easy to mix. The other one I would recommend, especially if you play metal, is a cabinet made by a friend. It's actually one of the best sellers. It's an NOS for Name of Sound 4x12.
Yes.
It does not build a lot of 4x12, but it's probably the most, let's call it even sounding. It's very full. It's easy to mix, not as easy, but still easy to mix, but especially very nice to play.
Yes.
And so I'm sorry because I'm a little bit like I listen to the same type of awful music as Frank, and so I'm not very good with blues and everything. But for metal again, I think you can't go wrong with a good old Mesa 4x12. We have the Mesa Official. And then you choose between the live type of microphone, so mainly dynamics microphone, or the more studio type of microphones, where I went there to select the collection of microphones. They did it in an awesome studio. And so you understand that those cabinets I recommend them because they mean something to me. They may not mean something to you, but they are a very good starting point for anyone. And for other like blues or country players, they should definitely take a look at the latest Jensen collection, we just released last week. It took a lot of time to convince Jensen to deliver some proper like DAN IR, because our format is not like strictly IR, so they have to work a little bit to get them to work. But anybody who's interested, like single 1x12 or 1x10 cabinets, the old school Fender stuff, that's them.
Nice.
And like if I was playing, like for example, even in a metal or hard rock situation, if I need to record some clean tones or a solo, because I'm lazy, I would probably use a 1x12 or 2x12 tops for the solo, and even for the clean tone, because I don't have to remove all that low end that is of no use on a solo. And I would go for one of those cabinets. So yeah, those are the four that I could recommend.
Okay, so let's keep going with this theme. Let's say I'm a young guitar player, I'm 21, and a friend of mine says you have to check out Two Notes, and I decide that I want to invest into the Two Notes ecosystem. I need something that's going to give me amp sound. I need something where I'm going to have some cabinets and maybe some pedals. What would be like the 3 top gear that you have that you would recommend for someone that wanted to go strictly with Two Notes, but wanted to be able to play at home, live, or recording session?
Well, if it depends on what they want to use. If they want to stay with an amp, well, first of all, it's hard for me to recommend an amp since we work with many amp partners. So I don't want to. I don't want to. and all of them are very good. The partners that we work with are mainly boutique manufacturers, and Mesa would be the less boutiquey of them, but they are still kinda boutique a little bit, and they are all very good in their own kind. So it's hard to recommend one. Some are more practical, like the lunchbox type of stuff, and they have the Two Notes technology in it. Victory or Rev, for example, or Ashdown for bass. They have the Two Notes technology in them, so they have a very compact thing that they could play with a few pedals if they need like reverb, some modulation, and maybe a boost or something, and that's it. Like they can build their own tone with those devices very easily. But we talk about a young guitarist who is searching for his or her own tone. Someone who would want a lot of versatility could probably stay with modeling. That's where you have the more versatile solution. But if you're willing to invest in what is your tone signature, and that is something I say to young players as much as possible. Like the playing is important. It's important to be original, but the sound as well. If you think about some like very famous bands, most of the time they have a very important, significant signature tone. Like they sound different. They don't try to sound like anybody else. They know that apart from the song themselves, they need to bring something different. And you know what? It's actually not how it works. Usually it's people, okay, they have that sound, and it's partly because of that that they become famous and successful. It's not like I need no, it's not I need a sound and I need to work on it. No, it's like I built it from the bricks I had, and it seems like people like it. It's more how it works. So for them, if they want to stay with an amp, they should definitely look at something that gives them that sound. The Captor X is a very good option to remove the cabinet and go modern, straight to front of house, using probably ear monitors on stage, because that's where the market is. Not even where it's going. It's there already. And I would like, there are so many good options nowadays when you're a beginner and you don't have 4,000 euro or dollars as a starting budget. I think with probably, like I remember my first proper tube amp with a Ritchie Blackmore, which was probably the cheapest angle amp at the time for 100 watts. And it was probably 1,600 euros. And we talk about like probably 2002. So it was a lot more money than it is today. And I still needed a cabinet, and I still needed some extra stuff on top. And a Captor X is pretty much the price of a entry-level 4x12. It's not that expensive. And you get a lot out of a Captor X that you will never get out of a 4x12. So yeah, I would spend, I think that 21 years old would have to go to a store, not spend 20 hours listening to YouTube videos, and experience the amp face to face, because it's not just the sound. It's also how the settings work for you. Do you understand how the thing works? Because on YouTube, the guy is explaining to you, and the guy is experienced. But when you're in the front of the amp, and you're supposed to make it work, it's a very different experience to me. But because I'm old, I guess, I would go to a store and figure it out with someone next to me, so I know when I walk out of the store, I may not buy the amp I was thinking I would buy, but I'm buying the one I need.
Yes.
Which you can't do online.
No.
It's impossible. Online, you will buy the one that someone recommended to you, and if it works for you, good. If it doesn't, you have to ship it back.
Yeah, it's true. 100%.
Very true. Great advice. Now, let's say we look at everything Two Notes. You guys put out a lot of great content, not content, but product over the years. Is there 3 that you could think of that maybe people missed that you think are like really awesome tools that musicians should be aware of, but maybe we overlook sometimes?
Okay, please don't tell anyone, but I don't watch our video that much. What I know, though, is that we have a marketing team for the past 3-4 years, which is awesome. And they push, especially educational content, not every week, but every other week, that is on the Two Notes channel. Which video they should watch, I don't know, because I did not watch it. but I know we have, because I do follow that, I know we have educational content coming out. And it's very important for me that we have educational content. And there are many videos for every product. And one of them is the one you need to look at. But I'm sorry, I'm not sure I can answer. I can answer about one that is not out, but I hope it will be out at some point. We shot last summer a video about the company itself, not necessarily the product, but a video about the company, explaining how we do things. The philosophy is a big word, but let's say the what we think is different about us as a company, again, with a lot of great shots. We work with a local studio here. We shot in my garden. The people may recognize the place from the video I put on Facebook of the barbecues I'm doing there. People come to see me at trade shows to talk about barbecue photos, not really that kind of stuff. Yeah, which is fine, totally fine. And I hope that video will be out soon, because it was for the 15th anniversary, and I think it's a great inside, or it's a little bit like being a fly on the wall around here, which is I think pretty cool. But the Two Notes channel for the past 3 or 4 years is now packed with awesome stuff for anybody who wants to get started with a brand.
Perfect. Okay, so I have 2 more questions for you. This one here is going to be more gear related. So let's say you are looking at all the gear you use throughout your musician experience. Is there any piece of gear that you think are groundbreaking and are still relevant today that are still useful even today as a player? Like it could be like maybe like digital stuff. It could be a specific amplifier, maybe a pedal.
Oh, wow. Okay. Those are supposed to be rapid fire stuff. Wow. Okay. Yeah. I feel like I'm being shot at. No, seriously, I think it's a category of tool. It's not one specific tool, but I think the audio interface, since when I started doing home recording, which was probably in 96, 98, and we had like Windows XP, or before that Millennium, the garbage, or even 95. 95, you couldn't really do direct-to-disc recording, but Windows XP or 2000 network. Anyway, the audio interface at the time sucked.
Oh, yeah.
Like crosstalk, like crazy. Like the first multi-channel stuff was garbage, like terrible. It was sounding mono. Whatever you did, you had so much crosstalk between the tracks inside the interface. Today, for €200 or $200, you have something that is nearly on the level of the biggest home studio you could find in 25 or 30 years ago. And really on par. Like I was lucky as a kid to be able to work with like proper professional studios, and some of them weren't that good. Like not every studio could afford like the Neve 88R, like all the big stuff with automation, and very few studio had that. Those studio cost like $5,000 a day. Plus, you had to pay for the engineers, plural, to make it work. And now with just a simple, we work with Audient. I like those interface very much. Yeah. I have an ID4. That's the one I'm using right now to listen to you guys. For less than $200, you have something that sounds awesome, that has a proper high impedance input for your guitars. And none of that existed 25 years ago. And today, you can achieve like pro level recording, well, probably pro level from that time, but most professional studios were dreaming of having the quality you have with your MacBook, with probably $2,500 worth of equipment, like a couple of monitors, some audio interface, and your computer. So to me, it's the whole digital audio workstation as a whole for people that I would say his the recording did not exist, like the home recording when it started, because it did start at some point. Yeah. When it started, it was a revolution and it sucked, but it was still awesome. Yeah. Today, it's incredible what you can do with a couple $1,000. It's still a lot of money, but man, I mean, it's nowhere near what you needed to spend just to be able to record something that sounded average. I'm talking about a time where I was recording my demo on a 4-track cassette, and even that Tascam thing was expensive. Yeah, it was. And it sucked. But it was the best you could afford at the time. And then you have your friend with a CD burner, 1x speed, with all the mistakes, and you couldn't read it in every car. Maybe your car had a CD player, by the way, maybe. But anyway, I think the whole DAW stuff is here to stay. It's changing in shape. I think AI will be coming into it to help you achieve what you're trying to do, because it's still very complicated. Like, I believe the most common question we have on our help desk since we released Guillaume is, how come I installed it and I don't find any software to launch? Because they think it's a software and not a plugin. I mean, the plugin thing is 30 years old plus, okay? It's not new news. Still, and it's written everywhere on the website, everywhere on the installer. It's everywhere, okay? The manual, everywhere. But the most common question we get is, I installed your shit and I can't find it. It's broken. So the whole and I'm not making fun of those guys. I've been a beginner as well, and I'm glad that we may be their first experience with digital devices and with plugins and the whole DAW thing. So I'm really glad and I'm proud of it, and I'm not making fun of them. But we need to keep in mind that that's the most common question, and the DAWs now, they assist you. Like when you launch GarageBand and you have, okay, what are you playing? Drums or keyboards or guitar? And boom, they build the track for you. And it may not, like as a professional recording engineer, you see that, you say, yeah, I don't need that shit. I mean, that's garbage. No, I don't want to put those compressor here and there. I put them somewhere else. But as a beginner, it's awesome. And I love the fact that those tools are more affordable. That they let people with ideas record, and some of it I may not like. That's fine, but it's like paper and pencils. I mean, one of those guys or girls recording on their laptop may become huge thanks to those entry level things. And we know it happens every day. There is a guy in a garage just playing with his Fruity Loops, or not Fruity Loops, whatever, Ableton Live, and creating the next movement in electronic music. And I love the fact that they can do that, and they don't have to be the son of someone who owns a studio, like it was the case 35 years ago. Usually those guys came from somewhere. It's not just a random someone. Today, sure, there is more competition. It's hard to make a living selling music because anybody can make music. But I still, I'm honored to be a tiny part of that, like helping them making music at home. I think it's a very positive thing when people can create more art.
And I can just tell you that you're maybe in the grand scale, maybe your contribution could be tiny, but for me here in my studio for the past 5 years, Two Notes has been a huge part of it, because living in apartments with neighbors, having kids, the wife, so on and so forth, cranking up like a 50 watt amp or 100 watt amp is just not a feasible thing. Like, you can't do it. So having something like this is, for me as a player, is freaking huge. So,
thank you, John.
I just wanted to say that. Okay, so my last question. This is the desert island rig. Everything, you have everything. So you don't have to worry about anything like electricity. Everything's there. But you're going there, and you can only bring one source of amplification, one instrument, and maybe 2-3 pedals. What would that look like for you?
Okay. One guitar, right? Yeah. You know what? I will go the easy route, and I will probably piss off some of my friends. But that's the one I'm playing these days, and the one I'm playing is always my favorite. This is a VGA Excalibur, so that's one of my like teenage years dream that I could afford. Well, it was during COVID time. See, okay. So well, it took them 2 years to deliver it, but it's versatile. It's sounding great. It plays awesome. The vibrato I can set up. It's passive. Doesn't need batteries. I mean, that's probably the one I would be taking because I can't do everything with it. In terms of amps, that's a trick question. I'm not very loyal in terms of amps. Like, I have a room with probably 40 of them. It's tough. I would probably cheat and take one that has a very awesome clean tone and have several pedals if I can have several pedals. But maybe my Bassman, because it can do everything, providing half pedals. But that's probably one of the best clean tone I have in that room over there. And with a very good clean tone, you can do a lot of other stuff. So with some overdrive distortion pedals, probably one rev distortion, because they're good friends and I love their stuff. One Wampler for overdrive. And I'm not that much of an effect guy. Like, my guys are, one of them got a Quaker, like some oscillator thing that sounds like a Star Wars sound every time you play. I was like, I'm not touching that shit. That's not for me. It's awesome because I like turning knobs, but I wouldn't know what to do with it. So chorus, delay, I don't need them really. Like a good foundation, clean, good overdrive, good distortion, and I'm set. And a Captor X, of course.
So, yeah.
On a desert island, you don't want to mess with the fish because that's your only source of food, so you want them close.
That's very.
Don't want to scare the fish away. That should be the new slogan for Two Notes. Two Notes, when you don't want to scare the fish away. No context. People are like, what the hell does that mean?
You know, John, and it happens from time to time. I had a lot of people contacting me to tell me I saved their marriage.
Wow.
Or
okay.
Yeah.
What?
Yes. And some of them that they could still live in an apartment and they didn't want to live in a house. They want to stay like downtown and they could stay downtown thanks to my stuff. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Or my wife let me go back to the house because she pushed me into the garage now I can go back up with my stuff. I was like, oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, that's
Okay, so I can't complain anymore.
No, but I mean, it's like the true life kind of situation that sometimes I forget about. But that was not my case because, well, first of all, I got divorced. So that fixed the wife issue, but not in a nice way, but it did fix it. But I have a new one. So, yeah, still need to stay silent in my room downstairs or silent-ish. But yeah, it is a real thing. Like those tools, they actually help with family issues or touring issues. And that's probably the one of my proudest moment because I know I had a direct impact on someone's like day-to-day life.
Yes, 100%. And I just want to add a little thing into this regarding like your favorite cabinets because we were saying like rock and metal. My favorite, like, and it's a stock cabinet. You don't have to pay anything to get it because it's included. Is the kerosene still like from the so if you're looking for a good rock and metal cab, the kerosene with a blend of SM57 and R121 is
161
unbelievable. Like perfect blend of enough low end that nobody will jump at you for like it's too much bass, like punchy low end, great mid range, and not too harsh in the top. It's just a very great cabinet. So the kerosene.
Yeah, I didn't get it from Peter Diesel. I think I got that cabinet from a neighbor. A friend who's a professional guitar player. We're not neighbors anymore, but we're still friends. And I think he was still living at his parents, which is another very good reason to keep the volume down. So it was 15 years ago, more than that actually. Oh yeah, more than that. And he had the Uberschall, Wagner plus a Diesel cabinet for some reason. It was just. Yeah, it was an awesome cabinet that I had no way to buy. Like I didn't have the start of the first euro.
Yeah.
Good, those cabinets are awesome. But again, what Peter Diesel does is expensive. And there's a reason for it. But I could not afford that at all. Like I'm buying today my teenage dream stuff. Took me long enough, but I mentioned the dual rectifier. I got some custom audio stuff, Stevens stuff. You mentioned it earlier. Frank, I have a Stevens preamp now. I mean, I guess that's probably what you do when you get to your 50s and you can't afford to change your wife again. So
to change your wife. Like IR loaders, just change your wife. Nah, not you today. Can you guys make that though?
No.
Can you make
Impossible.
that?
No.
I get away with this shit because my wife doesn't watch the podcast.
Same. Oh yeah. I mean, no, mine, and she's awesome. She's a violin player. She can't put up with the guitarist shit anymore. We do separate parties when she knows there are just there's a proportion of guitar player you can have in a room and in a conversation. And when I know the proportion is not good, I'm not inviting her.
out.
She knows.
Too nerdy. Well, Guillaume, I would like to. We really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for spending these past 2.5 hours of your time. I know you have a busy schedule as well.
Yeah.
You're running a company, So I know time is valuable. Thank you for spending it with us. And for everybody who up to this point still hasn't figured out things yet, please go to the Two Notes website. You'll find it under 2-notes.com, and it's also in several languages. So you'll find the information that you need, and check out their products. And and we are going to talk to you again next week. And until then, have a great weekend, and we salute you.
Thank you,
Cheers.
Frank. Shouldn't people subscribe to this channel? I think they should. Because it's pretty good.
That's something. Yeah, we should mention. Yeah, probably. Yeah,
we forget to do it every episode.
Every time.
Like we're giving away this, we're giving away the Warlow, and we forget.
Yeah,
to promote
we actually just one
We have too much
subscriber
fun.
away from doing the Warlow giveaway. So.
I can help with that. I will find a few guys here. But thank you. It was awesome. I had a great time.
Thank you for coming. That was a great interview.
Thank you. See you guys.
Bye-bye. See you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.